Hi, today I'm going to talk about apologetics again, but it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be more of a biblical apologetics because although it concerns morality, many atheists have an adverse reaction to the story of Abraham. And it seems to be like a tough verse. How do you say that God is the source of morality, yet you have these strange verses in the Bible where God asked the father to sacrifice his own son? But if you take the wider context into consideration, so the story of Abraham is one of the central theme, the central story of the book of Moses. And even the New Testament authors mention Abraham a lot. Even we Christians are considered the sons of Abraham in that we are considered righteous through faith, not by keeping certain law. And he lived by faith, and he was considered righteous by God. So when God called Abraham to go to the place that he was going to show him, Abraham was building his faith on that, on the promise of God, according to which his children will bless the whole world, or through his son the whole world would be blessed. So if you look at the nearer context, the God promised Abraham and Sarah that they would have a son, but Sarah didn't believe. In fact, I think she was even laughing when God told this to them, and that is why she gave Hagar to Abraham as a concubine. Now, concubines were sort of a second-class wives, and she gave birth to a son called Ishmael. And it seems like Ishmael was a bit of a bully, but I heard someone say that if you look at the text, it might not necessarily be bullying, because all the text says is that Ishmael was laughing. So he might not have been laughing at Isaac, sorry. It might have been more that the inheritance would have been Ishmael's, and Sarah wasn't happy about it. That's why she wanted Hagar and Ishmael to disappear. So she drove them away, but they came back because God told them to come back. But then later, after Isaac was born, God told them that they had to leave, and Abraham had to let them go, which must have been I think a pretty horrible thing. First of all, to let the firstborn go, and this was part of the test Abraham had to endure. I think some theologians reckon that was test number 1. Test number 2 was the actual event with Isaac. So here is the Bible text. It's Genesis 22, verse 1. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I shall tell you. So the interesting thing about this is I've read somewhere that it's been suggested that according to the original text, the way God speaks here, it's not like a command. It's more like almost like God's begging him. God is asking him really nicely. It's like, oh, Abraham, please, I'm asking you, take your son, your only son. I know how much he means to you. And they reckon that because of the way God talked, it suggested that even if Abraham had rejected, it wouldn't have been an issue. And the other thing is the mountains which I shall tell you. When Abraham first met God, God told him to go to the place that I will show you, and apparently it's the similar wording, which would have been something that would have reminded Abraham to the promise of God. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. Some translations say we will come back to you. What's interesting here is Abraham knew that they were going to come back. There was nothing about Abraham thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to go up there and kill my son, and oh, I'm a good, righteous person." It wasn't about killing. It was about Abraham believing the promise of God, because Abraham was with him throughout his life, with all the trials and we had to face and all the difficulties. And Abraham learned to trust the Lord, and it was his final test to see how far he can take his trust. And Abraham did trust him even before he was about to strike Isaac. It wasn't about that, because like he said, we will come back to you. So he knew perfectly well that both of them are going to come back. So it's not like some Bible critics suggest that Abraham was going up there to kill his boy. No. Abraham told his servants before he went up there that we will come back to you. I shall continue next week.